Hello, Phil here, for Testicular Cancer UK, with another interview with a survivor, and it's Ed, or Edward, Solly, from Maidstone Kent, who I've known for, you could probably tell me, Ed, I don't know.
Probably 9 years.
9 years.
About that. Yeah.
So you were diagnosed with testicular cancer 9 years ago. I remember getting in touch, actually, yeah, because you'd just been diagnosed, and I was guiding you through a little bit.
Yeah.
I remember, it's that long ago, mate. It's that long ago.
I remember it. You helped me out a lot, so it's something I'm never going to forget.
All right. Well, I expect a portion in the post, but there you go.
Will it fit through the letterbox?
Yeah. Tell us, go back to the beginning. You found a lump. What happened after you found the lump?
So I got hit in the balls, and that kind of started everything off. And my lefty, rest in peace, he swelled up to about this big. And I kind of went to the doctors, and kind of was a bit unsure of what to kind of do and in terms of everything. So I kind of just listened to them. They thought it might be like a cyst or something, so I got given antibiotics to see if that would reduce it. It didn't. It was probably 3 or 4 days of walking around like John Wayne with my kind of legs akimbo, struggling to drive. I really wish I had an automatic at that point. And then went back to the doctors, and long and behold, lefty was still massive. And then they said that I would need to get a blood test and an ultrasound. So I went off to go get a blood test and an ultrasound. And then you have the standard bit of nice jelly on your balls, and the ultrasound kind of all over.
I enjoyed
that. I had that struggle of working out whether to excite myself slightly so it looked bigger for the nurse, but not too much. And then she walked through the door,
which doesn't work. We know that.
Mate, she was hot. Like not like a little bit like hot, like a 9 out of 10, kind of like that unicorn kind of standard. So yeah, that was great fun. I was trying to balance that. So I kind of had that had that great experience. And then went back to my GP, and then kind of got referred to a urologist. Who kind of spoke to me about kind of the results and the fact that there wasn't any viable tissue that was left in my testicle from when I got hit. And essentially they kind of said that it was useless, and as it was giving me discomfort, they might as well have kind of to take it out. And there was something there that they weren't too sure what it was, but they weren't able to really look at it unless they went in. And if they were to go in, they might as well take it out, because it's useless anyway. So the kind of like the start and the kind of thought process was to have it removed, and then kind of do a biopsy, and then they'll learn a bit more from what it might be, because they said there was a lot of blood flow in it, which that it shouldn't have been, but without kind of really testing it and seeing it, they couldn't give me a proper diagnosis. So I kind of just went along with everything. And then I had my day up where I went to Maidstone Hospital. They drew the nice little arrow on what side of the leg, so they didn't take the good one. Though it's still massive, so it should be pretty obvious which side. I kind of had that done, and that was kind of only at the point there when I kind of started to have an idea about kind of what it could be like worst case scenario. As for kind of like the terminologies that the surgeon kind of used, he said tumor was the first time that had kind of ever come up in conversation. So I was kind of just a little bit kind of worried as you kind of go down to the chopping block. And then kind of after I had my surgery, that's kind of where I would say like my cancer journey kind of started in terms of where I got my Macmillan nurse, where I kind of had an oncologist, and the word like cancer and tumor kind of started to come into things really. So that was kind of the start of everything, I would say.
So how old were you at the time?
So it's 2013. So I was 25. I just turned 25 because I think I got hit in May. My birthday was in March. So yeah, pretty young. Just married.
It was strange because yeah, I've heard experts saying that a knock in the nuts or a trauma to the nuts, whatever, doesn't cause testicular cancer. But me speaking to many, many, many men over the years, there are quite a few who said I got a knock in the nuts, and
I
within
think it
a year I got diagnosed with testicular cancer. Whether it's the cause or just, I don't know, who knows? But when I hear that, I say, well, they might be wrong there. That a smack might at least trigger something in the area. So who knows? But you said you carry on. Sorry.
so for me, I didn't really know that I should be checking for lumps
Right.
on my balls.
Yeah.
So I'd never really looked, and it wasn't something that I kind of used to do, or something that was kind of like built into my like weekly schedule. Like it's Tuesday, I'm going to give the
Yeah.
testicles a little feel. So I didn't really know, and I couldn't say if I had a lump there beforehand or if there was kind of any abnormalities or anything like that. So it probably, I would say that it just drew my eye to my balls, and kind of made me a bit more aware of it.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah.
So
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. You could have drawn attention to the area, and there could have been a lump there, but you just didn't realise it.
yeah.
And of course, testicular cancer can be a slight swelling as well, not just a lump. So yeah, you got diagnosed. Can you remember? Can you remember any feelings that you had when you were told? Were you up and
It
down,
was
initial shock?
it yeah. I know this. I kind of remember when I got told quite well. So I had just had an argument with my wife because she found my credit card bill, and I think I'm a photographer. I like buying stuff.
Yeah,
So I think she saw like an entry on there. I think it was for like a new camera body, so it was like 2 grand.
yeah,
So she kind of saw that and she was like, what is this? Like quite annoyed, because we're normally relatively good and kind of discuss purchases and stuff like that. But didn't there. And she was quite annoyed, and I had to take something to the post office. So I was like, I'm gonna go do this. And then she did when you get back, we're going to talk about this. Do you understand? So I took my time. I went the really long way to the post office, kind of dropped everything off. And then I got back in the car, and my phone rang, and it was like a Maidstone number. Didn't know it. So I just picked up and I was like, hi. And then it was someone calling from the hospital. And I was like, oh, hi there. And they're like, hi, we'd like to make an appointment for you to come in. And I was like, oh, okay. Why? And they're like, oh, it's to discuss your operation. I'm like, okay, why? Like, what are we going to discuss? They're like, oh, we'd like you to come in before we kind of say that. And I was like, no. I was like, what? Why? Yeah, tell me. I don't want to just not know. I'm like, is this like soon? They're like, yeah, it's quite urgent. I was like, oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So what is it? And they're like, oh, we'd rather you come in. I'm like, you can't lie to me, can you? And the lady on the phone like paused for a minute and went, no. I was like, have I got cancer? And she like stopped for a minute. She's like, Mr. Solly, I'm really sorry, but we believe you do. And I was like, fuck.
That's gonna
stop. I was like, well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was kind of like at that half place, like, oh, I've got an excuse now. It's a pretty good excuse. But also at the same time, I'm like, I'm right. I'm like, I didn't want to be right. This isn't good.
Yeah.
So kind of just sat there in my car, just kind of with like that cold sweat feeling on your palms, and kind of that like, oh, I don't know what happens now. I don't like my mother-in-law just died from cancer a year and a half ago. So I'd kind of experienced and kind of seen her journey through chemotherapy, and kind of the trauma of it and everything through that, and the family kind of had that loss. So in my head, that's what it means. It means I'm gonna die, and I'm gonna have to go through all that, and I'm gonna need my family to support me. And it was that kind of like sudden, like, I'm going to lose my hair, I'm not going to be able to do this, I'm going to have to be in hospital all the time. And it was that kind of like panic at the kind of beginning. So then I kind of sat in my car, and I cried, sat there on the side of the road for probably it seemed like an eternity, and just kind of let it like all out, like the proper ugly cry where you can't breathe. And yeah, just kind of just in that like that the snot, that kind of moment. Yeah. The whole thing, no tissues or anything like that, so it's like all down my sleeves, like down here. Drive back home, and then kind of open the door, and Chloe looked at me and she was like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "Well, you're not going to be able to moan at me about the credit card bill now." She was like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, I've got cancer." And then she kind of just stopped. She was like, "Always getting out of things." And then kind of like a little kind of laugh like that, and kind of that hug, and that kind of continues to that cry. And then it was kind of that unknown and like waiting before I kind of started knowing any information, because at this point I didn't know what cancer, where it was, what I had to find out, what like my journey of treatment was, how bad it was. So for me, you go with what you know. So my knowledge of cancer, like I said previously, was that you die and you have to go through months of chemotherapy, and it's a horrendous journey. So that's what I had to do in my head. That was the only thought. And then you kind of get that thing where you're like, well, I could watch a YouTube video about it, or find out kind of that thing, or not too sure, and you don't really know where to look. So I do what most men do, and I ignored it, and I just pushed it down a little bit. And tried to be that kind of that big man who didn't let it affect him, and didn't want to show people around him that he was upset and terrified and unknown, and just kind of also like unaware of what was going to happen in the future. I didn't tell anyone else at that time, because I didn't really want that conversation, and kind of working out what I would have to say to people, and kind of like I didn't want to comfort my family for the thing that I would have to go through, and without knowing the information.
Well, yeah. I think a lot of men do that, don't they? They sort of put a brave face on, and but secretly inside,
Terrified.
terrified. But and then you think, you don't want the people close to you to get affected by it as well, and you I'm fine, we'll be all right. But I think with me as well, when I first got told, I mean, the second time I just shrugged or whatever. The first time, I've talked about me for a little second here. It was maybe I was putting a brave face on and I saying to everyone, and I was having the usual laugh with my mates at work and that. But I think when I was alone, that's when I started to get scared. At night at 1 a.m, because you can't sleep.
Yeah.
I started looking on the internet just for the survival rate.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
And I kept looking for 95%, and I'd go, I'd go onto another website, 95%. And after I'd seen that a couple of times, I felt a bit better. But the next night I was the same, been looking again. So
you just need to print it off and put it next to your bed.
Yeah, I should have, yeah. But so you got diagnosed, and excuse me. So from how did your wife, she did you notice any change in her at all?
She kind of went to like this survival kind of caring mode, and she was like, I've got to help him as best I can and provide whatever he kind of needs to help kind of get him through it. She's quite a like logical kind of person, who kind of like wants to help. She doesn't really overly show her like emotions. So for her, the way to help me was to try to fix it and make my life as easy as possible, and provide things to make it better and easier for myself to kind of go through the different bits. She was pretty good with not being too like overwhelming for me, for kind of like the for how kind of she kind of felt and stuff like that. So yeah, like overall she was really, really, really good and really, really supportive with everything. And then
I think it must be difficult for wives, I think, our partners, because they, like we put on the website, do I smother him? Do I just carry on as normal? Do I cuddle him? Do I hug him? You know, it's I always say to people, if people ring me, who've just been diagnosed, I always tell them to, look, go and speak to your family and things like, and tell them the truth. Like, you're a bit scared, but you want to carry on as normal. But I might need a hug now and then. But don't smother me. And men think, oh, I never thought about that. You know, it's if you talk to the people you're with, I say, look, I'm scared, but you know, don't smother me. You know, I think if we talk to our partners at the beginning, it would help.
Yeah, most definitely. It's like within any relationship, communication is really, really key.
Yeah.
And I think you also assume that the other person will know what you're thinking and feeling, and therefore be able to kind of work out what you want somehow without you explaining or saying anything. And kind of just, I don't know, working it out for themselves, which is very rarely the case. And like you said, you just need to be open and honest, explain what you need and what helps you and what makes you feel more comfortable and comforted kind of by it, and what you need in terms of kind of like support, whether, and everyone's different. Everyone likes to receive love in different ways. Sometimes you might just be, you're like, you know what, I don't have the energy to cook and do other boring tasks. I'm like, can I do less of that? That sounds pretty swish. Or you need more intimacy. You need like a hug. You need someone to hold you, to tell you that it's going to be okay. Or you need someone to be the practical person. You need them to call your family and explain it to them. You need them to be the person that phones your boss and explains how you feel, what you've gone through, and how you're dealing with it, because you find it too difficult to do that, or you don't know how to do it, or you might feel too overwhelmed to be able to make those phone calls and have that conversation with those people, because the way they react might snowball your reactions in your emotional state, and you might find that kind of too difficult to kind of deal with everything else that's currently going on.
That's deep, man. It's deep.
Oh, you know, I'm a deep person.
Yeah, I'm from up north. We don't know deep.
Emotions.
Yeah, but what you say is true. So on to, if we could go forward to what stage you were and what your treatment was.
I can never remember the stages and everything. He'd gone to my lymph nodes. I think it was stage 2. There's probably other bits to it.
It's all technical these days. 2B, 2C, 2. Look, I always say there's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, testicles. 2, it's spread. 3, it's spread further up. So stage 2.
Yeah, so I was at 2. So it spread to my lymph nodes, kind of in my, what was the area they call it? Kind of your
I can't say that word. Parierotic. In the tummy, just behind the tummy.
Behind the belly button, that bit. Yeah, on the spine, but not quite that far back, but around there. So yeah, it kind of spread there. I had a CT scan afterwards, after I got diagnosed, and bloods. I didn't have very high tumor markers on my bloods, if any. So they found it really difficult to kind of track how it was kind of doing with my chemotherapy. So I ended up having quite a few CT scans and quite a few like X-rays as well. Yeah, I had BEP ×3. So that was 9 weeks of BEP that I went through. Which was probably living hell, I would say. By far the worst experience of my life, which I wouldn't want to put on to anyone else in in my life, even the people that I don't like, and you know who they are.
Yeah, it's,
So yeah, it's lots of hospital visits, lots of blood tests, lots of was it self-injecting? Yeah, I think so. I think that might have been one. I remember self-injecting. I don't know when it was.
the you blast in the stomach.
Yeah.
I remember that one. That was fun.
And grab the flab, smush it in, and
Well,
I don't
Laura,
particularly.
I'll tell you a quick story. Laura did one of my second cancer, and my first cancer didn't have them. That was pretty new. What the new blaster was new. On my second cancer, I thought I knew everything. I went and did me chemo, and I'd come home and they'd give you a little box of steroids, wouldn't they? And you'd have a little leaflet. And there's this thing he said, new blaster, and I'm, what's this? And it's a bit like
exciting new toys.
Yeah, it increases your white blood cells, doesn't it? So
yeah.
Anyway, I didn't know this. So I had to read up the leaflet. I didn't know about this. And it says you grab hold of the fat in your stomach and you bang it. You don't need to press anything. It injects it and then you just release and it comes out. And I said, I can't do that, Laura. And she goes, well, I'll do it. Anyway, Laura is one of the people who screams, you know, if you just pop your head around the door. She goes, no.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so I'm stood there. Laura's got it, and I'm going, go on. And she like thrust it into my stomach, right? And it made like a clicking noise. And I remember it goes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And she let go and screamed, right? I'm like, oh my God. Right.
Is it hanging still?
It was hanging out my stomach.
Oh, mate.
So I knew it had gone in because I felt it going in, whatever the chemical is or whatever, the medicine.
It's nice and cold.
I pulled it out and the needle was bent. So she'd hit it, panicked, and she bent the needle. It was hanging out my stomach. So luckily for the next 6 weeks that I had more chemo, I did it myself.
Yeah,
so, that was funny because she didn't just scream. She screamed and ran out the door.
I'm like, thanks for the help there. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for that. Yeah. Well, carry on. Yeah. So tell you, Ed, because I do get told, you know, as you know, I run this, but I get told I tell people, look, chemo is pretty awful, and I get a little bit of criticism of some nurses and doctors saying you shouldn't really go into chemo and scare them, but it's horrible, isn't it, Ed? You know, what stage was the worst for you? Which round?
So I remember I think the last round was the worst because it gets progressively worse. But I kind of dealt with it as if I was like whitewater rafting. That's kind of like what I said in my head. I was like, look, you're on the river. You got to just keep paddling and keep going because it will get better and it will get to the end. You can't get off because it will get worse and you'll drown and die.
Yeah.
And you can't stop paddling because you're going to smash into the rocks. So just keep on swimming. Just keep on swimming. And I just kind of just turned up and just carried on doing it. Like that was kind of what got me through a lot of it, of just knowing that all I had to do was show up, sit down, do what I was told, throw up in a bin, measure my piss, and drink a lot and just do whatever I was told. I was kind of just like, what else do I need to do? They're like, you need to drink more. I'm like, okay. Have a cup. I'm like, more? They're like, yeah. More? Yeah. And just kind of do what I was kind of told, but it's a very roller coastery kind of journey. I remember my first day of my cycle was a Wednesday, and that was fine. That was just boring. I just kind of sat there with like a tube in my arm for I think it was like 7 hours, I think, total. And I just had lots of liquids put into me, drunk lots, peed lots. I remember peeing into a jug. And my kind of my fun weird game, because I'm pretty weird, was to see if I could fill the liter jug, and I nearly did it. I think it was like 950 ml, and that in theory I was like is the size of my bladder. So a lot of pissing, a lot of measuring, and it stinks like that metallic burny hair smell.
I can still smell it now. You're talking about it.
Yeah, like you can. It's like, ugh, it's not nice. So
It's not even a normal piss smell, is it? It's different. It's sort of like a, I don't know, but I can
yeah,
now.
it's like a
I can smell
metallic
that.
burn. Yeah, sorry.
It's like
Enjoy.
a pissy. It's crap.
You need a nice like a Yankee Candle aroma
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get
yeah.
rid of it.
It's
Um,
you
it's not
get,
nice.
yeah, when you have to
But
actually look.
it's like yeah, it's like memories. They kind of you
And I don't
link
know if
into
it's a
different
mix of
things,
that
don't you?
and whatever. The NHS must clean every hospital toilet or the ensuite toilet in every room with the same disinfectant because there's like, it's not even Alpine Fresh, is it? There's like a sweet, prickly click that mixes with the smell of piss. And
Yeah, it's not
yeah,
nice.
I
It's
don't know why
not good.
why you throw up that smell or actually the chemo itself.
Oh yeah. Well, it's just a terrible mix of both. But yeah, that's day one was just long and boring. I normally got like friends to visit me. And then day two was pretty much the same, but I was starting to get like a bit tired and a bit lethargic.
Yeah.
And then day three was where it was pretty hard, where I was really sleepy. I just didn't want to do it. And then I think day three was when I got the drug that gave me, I think it was pins and needles, or it was like yeah. So it was the one that made, I think it made you go like all cold and then got pins and needles in like your legs and it made you feel like you pissed yourself, which at the point where I was drinking like 6 to 7 liters of water was probably quite a high chance that I might have pissed myself. So then I just didn't, I wasn't sure whether I was going to do it, but at the same time, because I had like the pins and needles feeling everywhere, I thought I'd stand up and fall over because my legs wouldn't be able to support myself. And then I used to have a really I got quite bad dreams during it, and they were all about like pulling out the cannula and like tripping.
Person to say that, trust me.
Yeah. So my biggest fear on this was like I was going to either piss myself while I was doing it or do that, then realize, then stand up, then my legs go wonky, and then I rip my cannula out. So for that little bit, I just kind of sat there just like, is it over yet? Or like, can I go up yet? And then yeah, kind of after that was when everything kind of started to, I kind of got like I got really bad heartburn.
Yeah.
But I'd never had heartburn before. So
you know what it was?
I didn't know what it was, and I was out and I thought I had a heart attack. So that was a good fun panic because it was like on all the like list of like things that you could possibly have, and heart attack was one of them. And I was out with a friend. I think it was on the Friday. I think we went to go for like a meal out or something. And I remember just my chest and my heart hurting, and I had like a real shortness of breath as well. And I had that throughout my kind of chemo where I could only breathe in like a little bit. So I'm sitting there and I couldn't get enough oxygen in, and the pain. And I was like, cool, this is the end. I'm going to have a heart attack in a Chinese. I'm like, great. I shouldn't have gone out for my second serving. I'm like, it's all downhill from here. So yeah, that was kind of another like downside for it. But then Saturday was probably the worst in terms of how sick you were, or it might have just been a really bad Chinese. So that was just like, it's the veracity that you puke at, and like how just it was insane. It was like I gained like superhuman strength for when I was like, it was like as if I was a dragon breathing out fire, and just it was just endless screaming and retching at the end. And it was like I was a like metalcore vocalist. I was just screaming my heart out.
I remember locking my arms around the toilet.
Yeah, you said to me, you were like, don't put your arms around that toilet, otherwise you might break it. And so I was being sick.
Were we being touched by that?
Yeah. So
I'm sorry, it's a long time ago.
That's all right. Yeah, I was trying to work it all out because you started speaking to me. It was before chemotherapy, because I remember you telling me about like what was like possible things that might kind of happen. And I'm pretty sure I told you about when I had to go up to, because I missed this out, It's a great story. University College London to bank.
Yeah.
Before. So oh mate, this was brilliant. So like it was everything I thought it would be and worse. So we went up there, and I went up there with my other half, Chloe, and we thought, we're going up to London, let's make a day of it, you know, because having a wank in a room is not enough. Let's go see the sights. So I went up there, and it's in the basement, so you kind of go in and go down, and you get your pot, and you're like, I'm going to be quite honest here, like your pot is massive. Like it's not good for the ego. You get given a pot that's like, it's like this big, and I'm like, have I not been performing correctly for my whole life? Like, am I supposed to come that much? Like, so already it puts you in like a little bit of a back seat. Like, I was feeling a little bit demasculated. So got given up my massive pot. So I went into a room with a nice leather sofa with a nice bit of paper kind of pulled out, laid over the top, with a TV on. And the only way to describe it, it was like watching my mum fuck my dad on that TV.
Sorry, viewers.
So then I looked. Sorry, yeah, sorry, not PG-13. So I look to the side, and there's a little collection of magazines there, and I'm like, they're not clean. I'm like, wait, I'm not gonna. I'm like, it's fine. I've got my phone. Get that out. No bars of signal. No Wi-Fi. I'm like, all right, okay, we've got to use the wank bank. Let's go for it. So I kind of sit down, get myself comfortable on this slightly sticky sofa. And I do my best to find the remote to turn the TV off, because it's directly in front of you. And I'm quite good at blocking things out or focusing, but I couldn't get rid of the picture of my mum on the screen. It wasn't actually my mum, but looked quite like her, which is weird. So yeah, kind of do that. And then in your head, you've got that whole like, well, I want to get it done quite quickly, but then I don't want to get it done too quickly, because then it looks like you don't last very long. But at the same time, you don't want to take too long, because it then looks like you can't get it up. So it's that hard balance of like, shall I savor the moment and enjoy it, or shall I just get it done? So yeah, you kind of go through that like little weird thing in your head. So yeah, I think I got a good time. Not record breaking, but not too long.
Yeah.
Middle of the pack. So as I walk out, I'm holding my little pot. I'm like, it's not full, but I was like, I'm that, you can see it's a lot of sperm. I'm like, I'm pretty happy with that. I walk along, and there's a guy who's walking out holding 2 pots. 2 pots. But and he's ahead of me, and he gets to the counter, and he puts the 2 pots down, and this woman like walks up and looks at it, and then looks at him and goes, "Sir," and he like turns around, he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I needed sperm, not urine." At that point, I'm like, well, I'm happy with this, because I did the right thing. I didn't pee in my pot. So I popped my pot down, and I'm like, it's all done there. And then kind of like walk off. I walk past this guy who's got like his head like hanging down in pure and utter shame. Like, just walk past him, walk up to my wife, who's trying to like laugh, who's like sniggering away. And then we kind of like then headed off. And we had to like stay around to make sure, because they do a test to make sure the sample's all good. Right. Though I would say if I had to come back and do it again, there wouldn't really be anything left in the tank. So I don't really know why we stayed around, but we did. So yeah, that was a kind of my my fun experience. And
you were lucky you got a pot. I had like something that was like a Smartie tube, a see-through Smartie tube.
So nice.
You know, if you have to do a stool sample.
Yeah, that's difficult.
Like it looks like a little Smartie tube. I got that.
How do you? Oh man.
Yeah, well, yeah. She goes,
It's like a precise aim.
can you put your sperm into that? I was like, all right. And I didn't say nothing to her because I didn't want to. I went, yeah, no problem. I went into the room and I'm going. I said, when the moment comes, how am I going to aim? How am I going to have the coordination? Just that.
That's precise.
Final
If you've
seconds.
got that type of aim, that's insane. That's insane. You gotta keep kind of focused, good aim, right angle, and the good tempo.
It's when you asked to do that, and
It's a lot of pressure.
Fire it into a Smarty tube, and you've got to get the Smarty tube on the end at the right time.
Yeah, that's yeah.
I was in the military. I was in the military for years, and I was pretty good coordination, but I managed to get it in. But
oh man,
I would have. I wish I had a pot because
yeah,
it was just leave it to the imagination. Everyone who watches this, but when you're about to ejaculate at home, go and get a Smarty pot.
Be like 1 second
and see if you can do it.
Yeah, see if you can do it.
And start a Just Giving page, and we'll all do it.
And we'll do it, man. We'll see how that works. But yeah, but then it possibly brings into you could go for a different technique. You could keep it always on the end and do like a two-handed motion. That's a lot of coordination, though.
That's a good idea, isn't it?
You got to think of all these different things.
Self. You're intelligent. You make the words up. But anyway, so you did that, right? We got through chemo.
Yeah.
Obviously, second round hit me. Second round knocked me out. So obviously got through the chemo, got your results at the end, and it worked. Did you have the operation?
It kind of worked. Yeah. So
That's what going.
So yeah, I had BEP. I remember I think it was the Tuesday after. So like day 7 was like the best day ever because I stopped being sick. I got my appetite back and my brain went, you need to eat all the food that you didn't eat and you were sick over the last 4 days. So that day on the Tuesday, I used to go to Blue Water, which had like maybe 15, 20 different like restaurants and food places, and I tried to eat every single one. I ate so much. I think I had like 7 dinners that day. I just didn't stop, and anytime I walked past I was like, Krispy Kreme, so I was like, I'll have 3. I'm like I walk along, I'm like, yeah, I'll have a massive, like the biggest Starbucks I can have. I'm like, chuck all that in. I'm like, burgers 3. I just carried. I just literally didn't stop eating. It was insane. And then I'd kind of walk around it, eat till like 2 o'clock, and then I'd have a nap. So yeah. After kind of all my chemo, I had another CT scan, so they could kind of measure everything because they couldn't really get a massive idea on kind of like with my chemo markers through my bloods. So yeah, I had that, and then the size of the lymph nodes, like inflammation and everything, had gone down quite a lot, but not to a point that they would class as normal. So what my oncologist said is, we're going to leave it like another month because everything's still in the system. We've seen a significant change, so hopefully the drugs will continue doing their thing. The way that your DNA has changed and all the science that's way beyond my intellectual level as a photographer will do its thing, and then we'll test you again, and hopefully that'll be okay. But if not, we'll then kind of look at other kind of treatments and kind of where we go. So kind of that point I was like, cool, I'm just gonna forget it and I hope that it's all okay. I did what every sane 23-year-old would do, as I went to Disneyland. It was pretty cool, and had fun for
Paris one.
No, I went to Florida, man. I topped up on my tan. I got on all the roller coasters. I saw Mickey. I went to all the all-you-can-eat buffets I possibly could find. And
every corner in America, every street corner.
Pretty much. I think I ate so much food that I turned transparent with the amount of grease that was on me. Because you know that might kill the cancer. I don't know. It's probably not very good for you. So yeah, came back and had another CT scan and another meeting with my oncologist, and unfortunately it hadn't completely gone. And I still had lymph nodes that were inflamed that they were not happy about leaving. So they said that I would have another surgery, but unfortunately they couldn't do it in Maidstone because of the complexity of it. And that I then got admitted and would have to do it at the Royal Maidstone. So the surgery was RPLND. I think that's what it is called, but that's what I remember it being called.
I still can't.
Where they remove if you want to know what it is, if you just Google RPLND, and then it will be there. And if you really want, there's videos of it.
No, guys, it's basically taking the lymph nodes out. But the operation,
but they go through your stomach and all that stuff.
Was there anybody who doesn't know? They cut your stomach. So it's only about 1 in 20 what's like this, but they cut the stomach from your belly button up. So just below your chest.
And then they go around your belly buttons. You have a beautiful scar that goes.
Oh, that's a close. And they take your stomach out, and behind your stomach are the lymph nodes, and they basically cut them out and put the stomach back in and sew you up again. So I fortunately never had to have that. But what was it? What was it like? What was the op and what was the recovery afterwards?
It was scary.
It's a dangerous op, but most people, almost 100% get through it.
Yeah, so there's all the standard things they make you sign, and obviously, like, when you look through all the things that can go wrong, you've got death and like inability to use legs and loss of feelings, and there's a big list, and a lot of the list is stuff that you're not going to be okay with if it does happen, or it's going to be a significant life change. So it is kind of, when you look through it, it's not like, yeah, it'd be fine, like I could deal with being sick and stuff like that. It's like, I don't really want to lose feeling in my legs. I'm like, I don't want to die. I don't want crippling back pain for my whole life. Like there's a lot on there that's pretty terrifying. So you try to kind of just get through it and not see it and not go through it, but it's relatively foolish if you don't read it. You got to know what you're kind of getting into. But at the same time,
one of them says you can lose the ability to have an erection and be able to have babies. That's one of the that I know some lads do get they can't come.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. So it's called retrograde ejaculation.
Right.
So yeah, I can't. You still like orgasm, you just don't fire anything. It's been pretty good because I haven't got anyone accidentally pregnant. So you can look at the silver line of it, and you can have a non-messy wank wherever you want, as long as it's legal. So yeah, and it makes sex less messy. There's a few silver linings I focus on rather than kind of the downsides of it. But I've never had anyone complain about the fact that there's not a salty surprise at the end of things. So at first I was very worried. And I'd say, if anything, it's probably worked in my favor to get more of certain things. So, silver lining. And
you just point out to the people watching this that you actually have that separated from your wife.
Oh yeah. I'm not that bad. That made me look terrible. I am. I'm a single man. But and at the same time, through the wonders of IVF, I've got a 6-year-old daughter as well. So it stopped me from having some things, but at the same time, I haven't lost out in everything.
Right, got you.
But so yeah, it's and to like that was what I had to go through to not have cancer. So I think it's a pretty good trade.
So you
So
yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
not too bad.
it's also rare.
Yeah,
You have a,
I'm the only guy that
you
I
have had a bit,
know.
you have had a bit of a time, and it's rare for lads to need IVF.
Yeah.
I know what, Ed. Out of all the hundreds of men I've spoken to, I think you're only about number 3 who's actually needed IVF. Probably there are more, obviously, but I mean, how did you feel that knowing? I mean, you obviously we can tell you're quite a comical guy, quite laid back, but how did you feel? Oh, to have children, I've got to use IVF. It was psychologically. Was there any sort of? Or did you just say, right, let's have a go, let's try and see where we got on?
So yeah, so like it was probably like a little fear that I had that this would happen. So I remember pretty shortly after my op, not hours, but like a few days, I was like, right, let's see if it still works. So I was like, first stage, I was like, got a hard on. I was like, we're good. Like so far, I'm happy with this. But it was probably the most disappointing wank I've ever had in my whole life. Yeah,
Let's add some stiff competition.
yeah. I see. Yeah, when you're gonna do it. So yeah, it was pretty sad, pretty heartbreaking, to be honest. And obviously not something that you wanted, and you kind of would hope that it wouldn't be the issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the cards you kind of get dealt. So kind of told my wife this, which her response was, why didn't you do it with me? And I was like, oh, I just missed out. That would have been better. They would have softened the blow, but we don't want to soften anything. So yeah, then we kind of got talking, and after like majority of my like recovery, when I kind of got back to where I would say I was like 95 to 100% health, we'd always talked about that. We said that we wanted kids, and we kind of said like, should we start this process, because it's going to be a while, because you have to wait, you're bouncing around different doctors and sending letters through and waiting for things, and then they also go like, well, have you tried for a year? And I'm like, wait, it nothing comes out. I'm like, I can try for a year, but it's not gonna change. And they're like, are you sure? I'm like, well, do you want me to do I show you? Like, I'm like, have you got any better material than they had at UCL? Because I can show you now if you want. Like, it'll be weird, but if I've got to do it, I'll do it, kind of thing. So yeah, kind of started that kind of process, and then we got linked to a IVF clinic in Tunbridge Wells, and then there was a little wait, not too long, and then we kind of started down that kind of like journey of what we kind of had to do. And then when we got taken to the IVF clinic, they were like, can you give a sample? I'm like, no, that's why we're here. And they're like, we'd like you to try. I was like, I'm not lying. I'm like, but I'll just go into a room and say no and come out. There's no way to prove it. And they're like, we'd like you to try. I'm like, cool. I go into the room. This, however, the material, much better. So Tunbridge Wells material, top dollar. Was a little more fancy. So yeah, kind of did the deed. No, I think it was like a Mayfair porn magazine. And I had and without turn up sticky corners as well. Like it's going up in the world, people. So yeah, did that, and then they were like, oh no, there's nothing there. I was like, yep. And then they said whether they could extract it through like urine. So then I had to drink loads of bicarbonate soda, which was disgusting.
Yeah.
And then do the same then the week after, and then there was like, no, it's all dead. I was like, yeah, I thought it would be the case. That was kind of my input to the process, which isn't really much, but kind of Chloe's input into IVF, it was, so we had to have ICSI, so it's a bit kind of harder with kind of the egg extraction and the insemination and the kind of the time it takes and the procedures that go through it. Like it's not a pleasant thing, getting a massive needle stabbed into you. But as for a guy, you can't do much other than, I would say, hold your partner's hand, but you're not allowed to in some of the times. So it's a lots of visits, lots of support, lots of injections for them, and just kind of trying to support your other half and making sure that you're trying to help them through everything, and making the process as easy as possible, and just being there really. But yeah, it's we were very lucky, and we got pregnant with Amelia the first time, so we didn't have that kind of that trauma of that build up of hope and then that kind of loss that a lot of couples kind of go through, which is going to be, which is I would say is probably going to be the hardest bit out of all of it, because the rest of it's kind of just the processes of kind of supporting, and then the kind of like big hormone roller coaster, and then the painful procedures.
I mean, I'm not getting trouble for saying this, but especially for the partner, because I think a woman's nature to be a mother, or urge to be a mother or a parent, is far greater than a man's to be a dad. I might be wrong, but I think it must be, it's very, 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 I'm not saying it wouldn't be for the father, but it must be very, so traumatic for a mother to have to go through that. Yeah, what I mean, I'm not trying to say it's not a lead, but I think a woman's urge to be a mother is stronger than a man's to be a dad. If you get me,
I would say that.
Don't be wrong, we all want kids. Well, I'd love to have a kid.
Yeah,
but it can be. I'm sure it was hard work for your partner.
I would say it was a lot harder for Chloe than it was for me. Like emotionally and physically, she had to do all the heavy lifting, whether it was emotional and physical and procedures. I just drove there and made sure she was all right, and just brought her cookies. That's all you can do.
Always works. Works. No, but I'm glad I never had to go through that. I had Polly. Polly's 12 now, but when me and Laura got together, because it was my second guy, I'd had cancer twice, hadn't I? Although I'd still one testicle, but they told me, they tested my sperm and said, you are firing nothing. Said the sperm in there, but you're firing nothing. You're not having kids. So, all right. So when me and Laura got together, I said to Laura, it's all right, I can't have kids. Don't need anything. 6 months later, I'm pregnant. Never trust.
Oh,
nice one.
Yeah.
Actually, and do you know what? I hope she doesn't mind me saying this. Because I'd convinced her, or I was convinced, sorry, that I couldn't have kids. She was actually scared to tell me in case I thought she'd be with someone else.
Yeah, I get that.
So
that's a logical thing. Like, if you've been told you can't do it, and then your partner's like, "I am pregnant," you'll be like, "Well, it's probably not me."
Yeah, it was not me.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I'd say, and
it only takes one, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But I remember when I found out that I couldn't have kids, I wanted kids more.
Right.
It was that kind of like that feeling like, well, I can't have it, so I want it more.
Yeah.
And then that was definitely like a little driving force to kind of getting everything kind of started. And we didn't know whether we should start that year or wait a year. So like any normal couples do in a really difficult kind of point in their lives and a decision they have to make, we did rock, paper, scissors. and I won. So we started that year. That's how we had a kid.
These southern couples.
I know.
Up north, we have a fight.
Fight. Oh man, I wouldn't want to fight her.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we talked before, didn't we? Before on the phone that you are separated now, and
Yep.
it's all amicable. You both get on with each other.
Oh yeah, like I'd say she's one of my best friends. We kind of chat like every other day. Our daughter Amelia spends 50% of the time with her mum and 50% of the time with me. And yeah, it's kind of like anything, like any relationship requires good communication, whether you're with them or you're not, and just kind of open honesty, and you just kind of help support each other in parenting and make sure that your kid has the same message from both sides, and you make sure you're doing the same thing to support your kid and show that you no matter what happens in a relationship, you can still be amicable and nice, and you can have two loving parents that support and want to help kind of guide you through life.
Wouldn't it be nice if all of them are like that?
Yeah, it's not easy, and the start was really, really hard, but I feel like once you process and overcome things,
That's brilliant of you both.
It's
so easy to get. It's so easy to get nasty, isn't it? It could so easily get nasty, and then it starts a game of chess of nastiness sometimes.
Yeah,
No alone.
you just
so
you just got to prioritize.
Two people get on for the sake of the daughter, and things aside,
exactly.
Any grievances, to say, look, let's be mates. Make sure our daughter knows she's loved.
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
100%. It's putting your kids' needs and emotional state above your reaction and how you feel about the other person. And if you love your kid enough, you can do it. Of course, it's hard, but the more it's like anything else, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And the easier it kind of becomes. And to the point now that if anything, parenting like this is pretty awesome. I get my time which I can do what I want, and I'm free to have the fun I want and do what I want. And then I get 50% of my life with my awesome daughter, and we're gonna go on like dad adventures, and I gotta kind of help her kind of through life and spend some really, really good time with her.
That's great.
So yeah, it's pretty swish. Like it's the modern way to go.
Well,
I highly recommend.
Hopefully people will see this and think that's a good idea. I know we won't go into detail, but I know plenty of couples who split up and it just ends up in war, and then both ending up skinned, and they're both it's horrible. But okay, well done to both of you for that. But let's move on, because we sort of lost touch with each other. I mean, we used to chat a lot, didn't we? And I come down and didn't I meet you and your missus in London, didn't I? And
a
tapas bar somewhere.
Yeah, I think
Cutty Shark. Where's that?
Greenwich.
We were in Greenwich, weren't we, for something? It was Steve White's wedding. But then we sort of like most lads do, they drift off, and we don't speak anymore. But not nastiness. I mean, they just move on. But I remember you contacted, maybe 2 years ago, maybe it was before COVID, maybe, because you contacted me and said, because as people know, I tell lads to get their hormones checked. I'm big on hormones. We're trying to push it for years. We're seeing results of it. But you contacted me, didn't you, saying?
I'd probably say it was about 4 years ago now.
Really?
Maybe not quite. Maybe 3 years ago.
Because you obviously read what I put about male hormones and get them checked and try and encourage lads to pursue it. And I think you contacted me saying you weren't feeling that good.
Yeah.
Struggling a bit. How did you feel?
Like someone had turned my volume down.
Yeah.
I didn't really have much drive. I didn't have much like energy. I couldn't get like through a whole day of doing quite a lot. So that was kind of one.
You're only young, by the way. So It's
Yeah,
not
I'm
50 or 60.
34.
Yeah,
So
so
I think it was when I was about
50 or
30.
60. So you're young.
Yeah. And I was a proper chunky boy as well. I put on a lot of weight. I had just like no kind of drive in terms of kind of like sex drive. I didn't care about it. Like I just
Yeah,
wasn't, I was like, whatever, like happy if I do, happy if I don't kind of thing. Yeah, I had no like business kind of drive either for like just everything was just lame and low, apart from my weight, which was high.
yeah.
Um
So what are we
and
talking? Wait, what did you get to?
uh 18 and a bit stone.
Really?
Yeah, I'm 5'10", so I was round. I think I was like trouser size 40 XL kind of guy.
So
There was
balloon.
a lot of, yeah, man. Like there was a lot of cushion for my pushing.
Yeah.
Um
What
so
about
yeah.
what about mentally? Did you feel um some? I know when my sister was low, I had bouts of depression, bouts of
uh
feeling a bit
yeah,
weird sometimes.
I didn't get diagnosed with anything, but the only way to kind of describe it is I didn't care what happened in my life.
Right, right. Got you.
I didn't care. I was like, well, I'll go to work, I'll finish work. I don't care if it's a good day, I don't care if it's a bad day, doesn't really matter. I don't care what I do on the weekends. um I was just plodding through. Like I didn't, like there was no excitement, there was no like highs, and like it was just pretty like just kind of a bit lame and boring. And yeah,
This
there was
did
just,
this come? Did
that
this
was
come
kind
all
of
of a sudden? Did this come all of a sudden, or was it like a slow progression?
um I don't really know. Because I kind of like, it wasn't straight away after I had cancer, and it wasn't something that I like ignored. So I think it came on.
Yeah,
Um
yeah.
but honestly, I can't remember, so I can't really say. Um
But you felt all right. So you can't remember that. Then but you knew something wasn't right.
yeah, and there are a couple of things that you were like posting about, kind of having like drive and like kind of energy and like no sex drive and like weight gain. I kind of started to look at that and I'm like, yep,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then I'd look at it and be like, yeah, I probably should do something about it. I can't really be bothered, doesn't really matter.
Yeah, yeah.
um so it kind of went through probably like 3 to 6 months of that, and I was getting worse. And then I think I said something to my other half, and she was like, kind of did the like, well, why don't you just go check it? Like, and I was like, yeah, like that kind of undecisive. I don't want to make a decision. I don't want to find out that bad news.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I kind of just went to the doctors, and I was like, you know what, I'll get an appointment. And they were like, oh, we can see you today if you want, which never happens. So I kind of went there and explained everything. And I went with like a printout that you'd given me, because at that point I didn't have like the energy and effort and drive to argue it. I was just like, but I was like, it's a real hard thing. Like I wanted it to be like, it's not a fun place to be. And I wasn't enjoying my life, but at the same time, I didn't have the energy or care to do anything about it, but kind of also knew if I didn't do anything, I would just spiral and get kind of worse and worse and worse, which I'd been doing. So I kind of went there and I said about it, and the doctor that I spoke to was a bit like, oh yeah, well, we could probably get, like, it might be an issue. And I think at that I was in like a grouchy, sarcastic mood. And I think I said something like, well, clearly losing a bollock doesn't actually like reduce your testosterone then, like, because that would be a logical thing. And the guy like looked at me like that, and he was like, what? And then like leant in, he was like, okay, well, we'll do a
It
testosterone blood
worked.
test on you.
That's what more men
And
should
then
say, to be honest.
yeah, I was rude. Like I wasn't a thing
I,
that I was proud of, but it was, you know, when you're like, you snap and you're like, I can't like, in my head, I'd gone through a lot of effort to book this appointment and kind of get the courage to kind of do it. And when the person that you were speaking to didn't really take on board or felt like that you were listened to, I just turned into an arse.
Oh,
But
mate,
yeah,
fine,
it
absolutely.
worked.
I tell them to take
And
the guidelines and say exactly that.
yeah,
I've lost
and
part of a
then
hormone making system, and you want to give me
yeah,
antidepressants.
basically.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, like let's find out, because if it is low, then that might hint to it. And I got a test, and I think I can't remember the number that you had to be below to get treatment,
Usually
but
about 8 to 9.
I think I was like a couple of points above it.
Right.
So I said to the guy, I was like, does this show that? And he was like, well, I'd like to do another one to see if it goes down later. So I was like, all right, we'll do that. So then I went back in a few weeks, and I got another test, and it was a little bit lower. And then the guy was like, okay, well, we'll start on, like, you'll have test, like, we'll start you on this. And I got my my prescription through, which also I found out a few years ago that because I have to have testosterone because of my testicular cancer, I get a prescription-free card,
Yeah.
which is lush because I have to have a prescription every month. So winner, winner.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got my testo, and honestly, after like the second day of taking it, it was like someone got that volume control and just went whoop.
Yeah.
And I went from being like this, like lethargic, non-caring, no drive, like I can't be bothered, I'll just do this, and a guy that was like uninterested in sex, that didn't want to move, like, and suddenly I was like, I want to move, I want to be with my wife, I want to do stuff, I want to achieve things, and I want to make a difference. And it was literally overnight. It was insane.
So you
And
felt you again. You felt you.
oh yeah, 100%. I felt like I felt like me, like Barocca. It's you, but on a better day. But yeah, like I just felt me. I felt like everything was just right, and that it kind of alleviated like my meh kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, kind of from then I remember it like day 2. I remember putting it on and being like, whoa, this feels weird. And then it kind of calms down, and I was like, all right. And I remember being I think I said something like in my head, I was like, I'm gonna go do this now. And it was something like a really boring, lame task that I would always put off and never want to do, because I just hated doing it. I just didn't care.
Yeah.
I think it was something like, I'm going to sort all the washing. And I was like, in my head, I was like, why do I want to do this? And it was kind of like that, the drive to do more that kind of started from there.
Yeah, definitely.
My weight went down massively. So like over a year, I think I dropped like 5.5 stone.
Yeah.
I started running as well. So I got kind of pretty fit on that side. I got good 5K times. And yeah, I started to look a bit trim. My clothes size went down from a extra large to like a medium small. My belt size went down 10 inches. I wish the 10 inches went somewhere else. And yeah, everything kind of got better on that side. It was
I'm happy with that. It's
I
sorry, go on.
I felt like I should have felt, and what I used to feel like when I was healthy and happy and proactive and driven. And now where I know how much it makes a difference, where they've been like a little bit out of stock of the testosterone, I had one point where I didn't have it for like a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that was a really low point. It was really hard. Like it affected me massively from like my emotional state and my mood. I got overwhelmed over like really easily. I snapped really easily. Like my cool, calm kind of side just eroded.
Yeah.
I had no drive to go do anything. It just kind of went like went right back down. And then I started taking again. I was kind of back to my normal self. Like I don't feel like a superhuman. There's no like Hulk kind of like here, or kind of I'm not throwing like massive like muscle gains in the gym and stuff like that. I'm not performing better than a normal person.
Yeah.
But I don't hate my life, basically.
Right. Oh,
Which is quite a nice place to be. I've kind of going from that very low point and where I felt like I had nothing really to kind of live for and didn't enjoy any part of my life, to a point where I'm like very well driven and happy.
Yeah.
And that's probably the main thing. I like being happy. It's quite nice.
Yeah. It's well, I'm glad that worked. It's so frustrating. You know me well. You've seen what I talk about, seen what I do. And the misconception is a man who has testicular cancer is fine afterwards, and it's not always the case. You know, that you lose a part of your hormone system, you go for chemotherapy, and a man gets, as you said, can get very, 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 very low, feeling worthless, and because his testosterone is slightly abnormal, it says on the NHS screen in normal, and he gets thrown out. When all he wants, I mean, the word testosterone has been demonized anyway. You see testosterone through violence on the front of the paper, testosterone, whatever, drug cheats. But the amount that, well, me and Ed have, because I'm on testosterone treatment, is nowhere near what these people who abuse it are taking. It's just a small amount to get you up to where you should be for the day for his age. So nobody wants to be Superman. They just want to feel how they did before they have cancer. And most of them are young. So you're young, Ed. I mean, I remember when I was 29, when I had my first cancer, within a year of me finishing my chemo, I felt 60. And my weight went through the roof, and I was a slob, and I couldn't even be bothered at work, and I had no sex drive, and really low and depressed. So when I actually found out my testosterone was just slightly abnormal, I mean, people watching, low is 8 to 0, normal is 8 to 35, 40. So if you're 1 in normal, i.e. 9, right, you can't get treated. But if you, like I gave you the guidelines, and it says that if you slightly in normal, 1 in normal, or 2 or 3 in normal, but you've got all the, and you've had testicular cancer, but you've got all the symptoms, low sex drive, putting weight on, depressed, can't sleep very well, you might, that what they don't do, to everyone watching, before they remove your testicle, they don't check what your hormone levels are like, your testosterone levels. So if they take away the testicle, if they check Ed's hormones, and his hormones of say like 25 testosterone, and his all of a sudden after he's had testicular cancer drops down to 9, as we get older, our testosterone comes down. But to go in a year is dangerous for the man. We lose our testosterone. But I think the average 65-year-old, the testosterone is 15, and yours is say 9. But I'm working hard on it, as you know, Ed. I'm campaigning, putting in for about. I gave you the guidelines. So I'm giving lads the guidelines to go to the doctor and say, "Hey, bollocks."
Like realistically, it wouldn't be too difficult for when they first do your blood markers to also check for testosterone.
I've tried to get into government, and
like it's a tick box. Like I know that it's going to be more complex in terms of cost for testing and having to schedule it in the morning and stuff like that. But realistically, everything goes through the same process. It's not going to be too difficult for a recommended there's clearly systems in place for when someone has to start a blood test for what it is, and certain check boxes for the amount that has to be pulled. Like it's probably a tick box.
Oh yeah, that's all it is.
And it's not difficult to put like a note when you're having to diagnose possible testicular cancer that you should do testosterone check. Like they both begin with T.
Yeah, but the thing is, Ed, I've been talking to oncologists for years. I've been talking to urologists, and they go, oncologists aren't interested. They want to get rid of the cancer. I understand that. The urologists I you speak to are usually in the 50s, 60s, so they're old school. But what I'm saying is it's actually an illness. It's called hypogonadism.
Yeah.
Now, 3 out of 5 men who have testicular cancer go on to have hypogonadism, right? It's an illness. It's official illness that it's a bit like it's the male menopause.
Yeah.
But you got that at the age of what, 32 or something? 33, did you say?
Oh, like 29, 30, around there.
When they would have known a year after, if they'd have checked your testosterone levels before they moved the testicles, say your testosterone was 18, right? And you went into the GP a year or so later saying, or however many years later saying you fell, 2 years later, and you say 30, and your testosterone is near enough and low. So we've got a problem there. Your testosterone's really, really dropped where it takes 30 years to get that low. How are you feeling? I've got all the symptoms. We think you might have low testosterone. It's called hypogonadism. Here's some testosterone. It's that simple.
Yeah, it's pretty simple.
But they won't do it. Is it because we're men? Who knows?
What would be interesting is could you do a study for the number of men that have had testicular cancer and then had depression, and then if you want to make it more serious hitting, that have then taken their own lives? Because like suicide is I think it's the highest male death for young men, isn't it?
Yeah, it will be. Yeah.
So I bet you there'll be correlation between that.
Oh, yeah. Male hormones in general are misunderstood, untreated, laughed at, brushed under the rug completely. I mean, we won't go into great detail, but low testosterone now is linked to diabetes. Low testosterone now is linked to depression in young people. In Germany, if you're 30, go into a doctor and say, I feel really low. The first thing they do is check your testosterone, your hormones. Not give you an antidepressant. Let's see where your hormones are. They're doing it in Germany, but not here.
Yeah.
And as you know, I'm very passionate about it. And sometimes I've upset a lot of people and sort of like been blackballed by the medical community for sticking up for men who've got a genuine illness and can't get treated. So we won't go into that, Ed. But
we'll get you a name change.
Yeah, but I'm so glad actually that you've come out. Not come out. Sorry, that word. You've talked about, the psychological problems of low testosterone and how you felt going through cancer and how you felt to go through IVF. Because let's put it bluntly. I mean, this don't take this the wrong way. You could be a good poster boy for the things that could go wrong and through testicular cancer, because you had the chemo. You had the lymph node operation, then you had to have the IVF, and then you found out you had hormone problems. So you've done a monopoly board, haven't you?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's like Pokemon, mate. You got to collect them all.
Yeah, but somebody might watch this and think, might be inspired. Well, I think there's probably somebody will be inspired, and maybe some people will actually, close friends of yours will watch this and go, "Oh, I didn't know Ed went through all that," So, but I'm glad you've come out the other side. I mean, I still have. I mean, I'm on test. I still have down days. I remember I didn't take it for 2 days the other week. I'm stubborn sometimes. I felt like crap. But when I did start taking it again, like you said, I was walking around the house full. I was hoovering curtains.
That's pretty extreme.
I was hoovering, getting underneath the couch, seeing with the hoover.
You'll start folding your boxes soon and putting your socks in like color order.
Yeah, running into the garden with a mower. Let's do some mowing.
Oh, man.
A
bit of weeding as well.
But thanks for that, Ed.
That's all right.
What I'll do is I'll put your contact details below, which you can email below the video if anybody in the Kent area needs any advice.
Yeah, most definitely.
Or someone to talk to, or have a kebab with.
Kebab, yeah.
3 burgers.
Or 3 burgers, yeah, mate. Or a wedding to be photographed.
So Ed might be soon doing some talks as well about testicular cancer in the local area, in Kent and down south. But we'll put that on the website because he wants to do some talks. That's cool. We'll talk about it another day. But I'm going to post this video tonight and put it about when I press stop record. And thanks Ed Solly from Maidstone. That was a really interesting talk. And to be honest, you're funny. You made me laugh, man.
Well, I use it's the good old classic, use humor to get through.
And you're handsome as well. You're handsome and funny. That's, you know, it's very rare.
Oh, you make me blush.
All right, Ed. Thanks very much, mate. I'll speak to you soon.
You're welcome. No worries. Thank you very much, buddy.
Bye-bye.